Just decide to make an upgrade. Welcome back to another episode of the Upgrade My Classroom podcast. My name is Kevin, the host, and this is the show where we teach proactive mental health and personal development strategies for teens, so teachers and education professionals can come, listen, learn, and then go upgrade their classroom. Literally teach better decision-making frameworks, better SEL tactics, better mind-body connection things. And what today's episode is going to be about is about you, about the teacher, about the professional, about the speaker, about the person who's listening who actually wants to inflict change on their students and their teens. Because at the end of the day, that old saying comes back and is very prevalent. You have to apply your own oxygen mask first before you help others. And we are facing a huge burnout issue when it comes to teaching in this country. And that is a whole nother topic for a whole nother day. But what we can do about it is we can focus on you and the health of your mind and your body so you can better implement these strategies. So what I did was I brought on a very special guest, someone who is going to really help us understand how our body kind of holds some of the things that our mind is dealing with. Her name is Molly Rasanen, and she is a coach. She's an energy coach, and I'm going to give you some more details here. But our conversation is really, I think, special because it's very wide-ranging and it's very open. But we talk about how our body holds, our nervous system holds trauma and holds things that might have happened to us many years ago, but we hold it. So when we're feeling like we're about to fly off the handle on one of our students, or we're just so frustrated, or we're nervous when we're not supposed to be nervous, all these different types of emotions that just don't make sense, it very well may be gaining control of your nervous system. And there's a lot more that we don't discuss today that you would have to actually work with somebody like Molly to kind of uncover, but it's super, super interesting. And then we also talk a little bit about intentionality. I give the example of taking a walk outside, and I can walk my dog and my kiddo around the block, but if I'm not intentional about taking in the power of nature and taking in fresh air and breathing, then I'm not necessarily going to get some of those benefits, but we do kind of go back and forth with that. Molly Rasanen is a former ER nurse turned energy healer and holistic life coach. She specializes in helping humans learn and integrate the tools and techniques needed in order to go on the deep inward journey of healing and self-discovery. Molly is not only an RN, but a certified holistic nurse coach, Reiki healer, and 500-hour trained yoga teacher with a passion for teaching the tools and modalities that allowed her the space to holistically heal her own anxiety, PTSD, and lifelong severe asthma from the inside out. So without further ado, let's get into my conversation with Molly Rasanen. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
This is going to be really, really fun. I'm very excited to break down kind of your role in what you do in this world and how effective you are at helping people, what I might say is get out of their own way. So I'm excited to jump in. So without me blabbing on, I'd like to give you the floor and kind of introduce yourself and let us know a little bit more specifically about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so I'm Molly. I have a background as an ER nurse for 4.5 years. I worked my first 2 years in a level 1 trauma center on Long Island, and then I branched out and was a travel nurse for 2.5 years, all through the pandemic. And in that time frame, I reached a level of dissatisfaction and burnout and like brokenness that I never really expected to experience in my life because I considered myself a pretty positive person. And through that experience, I led myself on a healing journey to heal my own anxiety, my own stress, my own PTSD. And in doing so, I found my purpose. I fell head over heels in love with holistic healing and energetic and emotional healing and the deep studies and science that is going on, thank God, now, connecting like the reality of how much our emotions and our energy affect our day-to-day life. So it's really hard when I get this question on podcasts, like introduce what it is,
Right.
who you are, what you do. And to put a name on it is difficult, but I mean, I consider myself an energetic and emotional healing coach. And I specialize in working with men and women moving through the emotions that are keeping them stuck where they're at and from feeling like they can move forward towards a life that they actually desire to be living.
That is, I mean, that's fantastic. And I think, so to clarify before we move on, you were working as a level one trauma nurse in, if I get that right, during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm assuming that that was a huge turning point for you of why you needed to step away from this and go on your own healing journey.
It was the turning
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
I mean, trauma nursing in and of itself, before all that happened, is a heavy burden to bear. It was way more than I ever expected it to be, mentally, emotionally, physically. And I know so many nurses that can so deeply relate to that. And I had already started to feel pre-pandemic that there was just something missing in Western medicine. And I'm not that spiritual person who went on to like denounce all science and
Right.
Western
Right.
medicine. I
Right.
believe that it is so beautiful and so important and such an intricate tool. But I just always felt like there was something missing, like there was
Sure.
another way to go about health and wellness that wasn't being integrated into how I was serving my patients. And when the pandemic hit, that just kind of came like a tidal wave of like, not only is there something missing, there's something really, really wrong here because so many people are so dysregulated and have all these comorbidities and are just being given these medications that aren't actually solving the issues. And then that deepened my studies into the alternative sides of medicine, holistic healing, Eastern medicine, and how we could begin integrating the two. Like how important what I teach is a preventative mechanism, right? I mean, yes, it can go in and help people heal from these chronic illnesses that they're walking around with. But if this is something that we can start spreading into the mainstream population, if we can take away that like it's woo woo or magic and start bringing it forward to people of like, this is how you get to empower yourself to live a whole, embodied, healthy, aligned, and like energetic life. I mean, and without going too much on a tangent, we know at this point how much mental health is suffering these days, how many people are walking around with multiple comorbidities on all of these medications. And the avenue that I've decided to go down is taking a look at root cause and what can we do at a natural, like root level to help alleviate some of this pain and suffering that's going on.
Great, great point to segue into going a little bit deeper into someone who comes to you and needs your help. And they come to you and they see you, someone refers them, oh, you got to work with Molly, she's amazing. Or they see you on Instagram or something and they're like, wow, this girl's got it going on, right? She knows what's going on. I don't know what she's talking about, but I want to work with her, right? Like, I don't know what any of this means. I want to work with her. Somebody calls you and says, I want to work with you. And this is their first breakthrough moment into realizing that they are in control to 99% of their life is based on their choices that they have in front of them and the decisions they make from that. Where do you start with them? What is the process of bringing in a new client for you?
Yeah, so nervous system is number one. Nervous system healing, nervous system regulation. And I have fallen so deeply in love with that science and all of the studies that are coming up now, because the biggest thing for so long, and even when I first started getting into this, is like, how do I explain this to people? Like I trusted and I surrendered and I walked myself through the process, and I've healed so many things from physical ailments to mental and emotional ailments. But nervous system healing, I like to think of it as like this bridge between science and spirituality, because our nervous system holds on to so many emotions. Like it is basically this database, right, of all of the emotions that we've experienced since the time that we're a little kid. I mean, it holds on to things that you wouldn't even like think to have remembered. And those sensations get stored in the body. And when the body holds on to that stuff, little things in your day-to-day life can trigger that same emotion and make you feel that same exact way that has you then connecting to these ruminating thoughts of, just to throw one out there that's really big, is like, I'm not enough, or I'm not doing enough, or I don't have enough, is like a really big one that I work on with a lot of my clients. And just beginning at the level of the nervous system, how we can use the breath, how we can use diet, how we can use exercise, how we can use mantras, which I'm sure we'll get into talking about, to literally downshift the nervous system from a state of contraction into this more like open, easeful state of being. So that is always number one place that I go to with, especially people who are like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Like, how do I understand this?
So, okay, so you walk them through the nervous system and some of the more tactical ways to approach getting control and more, I would assume, realization of the nervous system. And, you know, if a teacher or education professional is listening to this and saying, okay, well, what does this have to do with me? Well, we're going to get into that because I'm going to give you some examples. But let's go back to what you said is with mantras. So I have never been into, so I've been very... So I had my breakthrough 2014. I was studying in Liège, Belgium, and I was all by myself. Couldn't speak the language. I recommend anybody, if you're going to live in another country, try your best to learn. But with that being said, I did try my best. Of course, within a year, you can only get so far, and I became so insular, and I became so insular on. Not only in my own mind, but then into personal development, information, knowledge, podcasts, videos, all this stuff. And that's, you know, every walk, every day, every bus ride, every day, I'd be, you know, just completely filling my mind with all these possibilities. And along with that, an intense morning routine of, you know, meditation, working out, breathing, a couple things. Never got into mantras. And I respected them very much. I think my first experience with them was just ineffective, and I didn't probably give it enough of a chance. Only recently, in the last probably 6 to 12 months or so, did I incorporate a mantra, and it has finally worked. And the mantra goes like this: I am a calm, level-headed role model for my friends, family, and most important, my innocent daughter. And I say that 3 or 4 times while I'm in the shower in the morning. And the reason that has come to be is because, you know, I do a lot. I do a lot. I run a business. I work full time. I watch my daughter, like all at the same time. And I try to be a good husband. I try to clean the house. I try to, you know, there's a lot going on. And to the point where it's probably not sustainable, but it is necessary right now. And I can feel myself when I do my mantra, and I do it consistently for a week or two, I can catch myself. I can get into the moment where I start getting really frustrated. I'm about to lose it on my 2-year-old daughter, which is not her fault. And I catch myself. I'm like, and something, it's not even like I'm thinking about the mantra. It's just there's this pause, and everything's okay. And I can't even process what I'm thinking. Is that the nervous system working?
Yeah. So one of my favorite topics around nervous system healing is the science of neuroplasticity, which is that our brains can change, that we can literally change the pathways in our brain by attention and intention and repetition. So that's where mantra gets to be really beautiful, or even just deep breathing practices is a huge thing I work on with my clients, where same thing, if they get themselves into a space of practicing it every day, a few weeks, a month, 2 months, all of a sudden they'll start noticing, like, I was about to fly off the handle and get stressed about something, and I caught myself deep breathing. I'm not thinking about it anymore. It's just happening. And that's because of the science of neuroplasticity, that we have the ability to affect change on our own brains. And when I learned that concept, I was like, wait, what? And I was just getting into personal development, nervous system healing, becoming a yoga teacher. And the idea that I had some control over the reactions and responses I was having to day-to-day life. Maybe not right off the bat, right? Because it feels really uncontrollable when you aren't in the practice of learning to be in control of it. But what neuroplasticity is that when you repeat a habit or a pattern over and over and over and over again, I think about it as like you're creating a pathway in your brain. You are literally creating a neural pathway, but I think about our habits and routines that it's like 90% of what we do in a day is just without, it comes from the subconscious mind. It's without even thinking. And I think of that as like a path that you walk all day, every day. It's clear. There's no brush in the way. There's a footpath, like a clear direction. And when you are aiming to begin creating a new pathway, and you've never walked that pathway before, there are sticks, there are twigs, there are vines, there's a lot of crap that you have to cut through in order to make this a pathway that your body just automatically chooses. Because another really interesting thing about neuroplasticity is that the brain is always going to choose what it's used to. So even if it's something that's bad for you, even if it's something that's detrimental, even if it's something that's causing depression, anxiety, PTSD, any one of those things, the brain is going to keep choosing it because it's what it's used to. It's what it's familiar with. So we have the power to familiarize ourselves with new coping mechanisms, new ways of thinking, new ways of breathing or responding in certain situations. And the more I tell my clients that every single time you choose that new way, you're carving out that path every single time you choose it. Because people will get so frustrated and being like, I learned this and now I'm supposed to know better, but I still feel myself going this way. And it's just every time you choose that new thought, that new breathing pattern, that mantra, you are creating that new pathway that one day it's all of a sudden going to be absolutely thoughtless. It just becomes who you are.
I love it. So when we talk about the lens of a teacher, and in the moment, they've got, 20. Oh, no worries. In the moment, they've got, no problem at all. In the moment, they've got a class of, 25 to 30, 15-year-olds. And those are little people that their brains are not even fully developed yet. So there's a lot of things that can happen and that can trigger them. So I'm assuming that this work that can be done outside of the classroom will eventually filter inside in the moment when they've got Sally and Johnny screwing around in the back, and they're about to approach it in a much more negative way than they could be as their ideal teacher. I'm assuming this practice can kind of, like I said, when they go home and practice this stuff or before school, this will have a better effect in the classroom.
I mean, absolutely, because it's a practice of not allowing the external conditions outside of you dictate how you are feeling inside. Where, I mean, we weren't raised and taught these things. This wasn't mainstream, but knowing that we have this power and knowing that we can use this power to practice processing differently, it takes time. It takes grace. I have 4 words I give to all of my clients. It's practice, patience, grace, and grit, because you have to be willing to practice it over and over and over again. You have to have patience with yourself as you feel yourself continuously going down that old pathway, right? When you're trying to form this new one. Grace, that it is so normal for you to keep going back to those old habits. Right. And grit, in that, like, you just have to keep going. You just have to keep going. And over time, when you are choosing, what I love so much about this work is that, like, as you're choosing to heal yourself, you're naturally going to help heal those around you. Because when it comes to energy, like energy attracts like energy. So if you think of a teacher in a classroom, right, that gets really, really contracted anytime kids are flying off the handle or whatever it is, which, like, I will not downplay. Bless you. if you get really contracted and anxious and frustrated, that is exuding that energy out into the classroom, and more of that energy is going to manifest in the classroom. But when you can practice with yourself at home over and over and over and over and over again, creating this inner stillness, creating this knowing that what's going on outside of me doesn't have to affect how I feel within me, eventually over time, you're going to cause an effect on how you relate to your students, and you're going to cause an effect on the classroom overall. I mean, we've all probably been in a situation where somebody walks into a room and you can just feel their peaceful presence, right? Or somebody walks into a room and they're angry and you're like, ooh, what's the matter with that person, right? So we are literally causing the effect on the world around us when we are in control of practicing keeping our own energy in alignment with our truth, and with that inner knowing of like, what's going on out here doesn't have to affect what's going on in here.
So ultimately what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that if somebody is to do an energy healing practice with either you or themselves or someone else or whatever, and they are a teacher, that they will be able to positively affect the lives of their students by working on their own. That's awesome.
100%.
That's awesome.
Absolutely.
That's because I was going to ask you if this can apply. I know you don't specifically work with teenagers or anything. I'm curious though, if a teenager does go down this road, because I know there are. I mean, yes, it is not the majority, but I know there are some who are, I mean, definitely have a respect for not only energy, but just their own personal growth and self-growth as a human being. I'm assuming that this could also apply to teenagers. I would assume it would have to be taken maybe possibly a different little approach because of their space in life and their experience in life.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it is applicable to all human beings. Sure. It is a piece of the beings that we are that just it's not mainstream where we're at, right? This has been a way of life in the East for thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years. Yeah. And the way our Western society just is like constantly on the run, only attached to, what is the word I'm looking for? To like material, right? Yeah. Like material and money, and constantly going, and what is happening like right in front of me. But I truly believe that the more adults that begin integrating these practices into their lives, the more it's going to be passed down to teenagers, the more it's then going to be passed down to like, I plan on practicing these things with my future children as early as I can. Because what we're working with right now as adults, when you go into an energy healing practice, or you decide to work with a coach or a healer on unwinding kind of your subconscious and all of these emotions that you've been holding on to and not really understanding for your entire life, you're working against however many years of conditioning you've been, like however long it's taken you to decide something's got to give and something's got to change. When we can instill this into children or into teenagers and teach them the power that they have to control their own emotions or understand their own emotions and regulate their nervous systems, we're going to create an entire generation, and then generations to come, of children and teenagers who are so much better emotionally suited, like energetically suited. Their stress levels are going to be so much lower than what we are. I mean, I see this as being the future of modern psychology, the future of mental health, because right now, the way that things work in Western society is like, oh, you have this symptom, here's this medication, or like, make sure you're working out or make sure you're eating right, but not real education on what that means and how to go about doing it. Right. Whereas energy healing is this holistic approach. So specifically, I work with the chakra system. Okay. And when I work with my clients, we're starting at the root chakra, which is safety, security, stability. How are you feeding yourself? How much time are you spending in nature? Like these really simplistic ideas that can feel so difficult to integrate into our lives because of those habits that we formed that are like, nope, this is the way that life is and this is the way that it has to be.
Or that time in nature, because we don't I don't have enough knowledge about the chakra system or whatever. Our time in nature, I don't understand that, because how will going outside make me feel better? And it's like first of all, I'm sure in the beginning, it's we're not going to be able to feel the effect of taking a 15-minute walk, what that would do. More importantly, I'm curious on that, and just something popped in my mind. Where does intention fall into play? Because I take my daughter and my dog out for a walk every single day. Partially because it's like I need a moment where the kid is in in the stroller, just so I can, like, all right, there's not that, like, that traffic cop that is like turned on, right? I could turn that off for a second, just for a 25-minute, period, which, I mean, she's an amazing, adorable, best light of my entire life, but still, it's tired. She's a toddler. It's tiring. Anyway, we go outside, we go for a walk. If I'm not intentional about connecting with nature, will that automatically shut that pathway off, or will it still have some effect just simply being outside?
Simply being outside will definitely create an effect, but intention is going to be that deeper level in anything that you do. Like, if we can bring intention into every facet of life, like, what am I doing right now? Why am I doing it? And where is my head and my body? Like, how am I feeling? Where's my head at? So, I mean, working with the power of intention is a huge piece of energetic healing. And for an instance, like you said, going to take your daughter out on a walk, like, even if you just set the intention of, I'm going to intentionally feel the way that fresh air feels as I breathe it in. And I'm going to intentionally feel this moment of being with my daughter out in nature, right? Like, setting the intention for what we desire to feel and desire to happen in our moments creates the momentum in that direction, versus unintentional or unconscious living. It kind of lets go of that control of, like, if I don't set an intention, if I don't have a purpose for what I'm doing or what I'm desiring to experience, I'm just going to experience whatever comes my way, however it does, and it's going to be perceived through whatever state of mind I'm in that moment.
Right. You can be really pissed off and taking your daughter for a walk and just be just as pissed off as you are when you come back. I understand that. I want to talk to you a little bit about, because I'm really fascinated on where you approach and work with your clients on diet, because I think for me, I know that to be a fact of how effective that can be. Break down kind of what you do to work with clients, and what I'm curious of what your ideal diet, now granted, I'm sure everybody's a little bit different, but what if you had to say, here is the ideal diet, kind of what would that look like? What would that compromise, and what would that eliminate certain things?
Yeah, it is definitely totally different person to person. Even male to female is very different. I do work, I attract a lot of women into my world as a woman. So for women, we focus on cycle syncing, and actually, like, pairing foods that are for different parts of your cycle. But the main thing I teach, just to keep it, like, really straight and simple, is everything is energy. Right? Everything is energy. So the energy of the food that we are putting in our body, taking a moment with that intention, what is the intention of this right now? Is this going to fuel me? Is it something that is energetically light, that is going to like nourish me and bring me up? Or is this something I'm going to eat that's going to make me feel like that's just going to contract me, or make. Another good point that I like to drive home with my clients is, everything you put in your body is either fueling you forward, or it's taking away from your energy because your body's trying to process it. Like, anytime that we're putting over processed foods, like too much sugar, anything like that, the body's working in overdrive to try and process and get rid of that. Whereas when we are using just natural, raw, like as close to nature as you can get with your food. And now, I'm not necessarily a proponent for, like, veganism or anything like that. I think it works for some people. Right. I think it doesn't for other people. But my go-to would just be as raw and natural as you can. So, like, meats, vegetables, grains, like the food that we all know, we all consciously know, like, what is healthy and what is I mean, maybe that's too much of an assumption, but and doing things in a balance, right? I'm also not going to be the person to tell you to never freaking eat sugar again.
Right.
If you didn't, would you probably be a little bit healthier? Yeah. And like we all kind of know that.
Right.
But what is the intention behind the food that you're eating? When you're reaching for a cookie, is it because you're having some sort of internal, like emotional something that you're trying to numb from? Or is it like it's a celebration and I'm intentionally eating that? I'm intentionally choosing this choice right now.
As we all did last couple of days, I'm sure, or last couple of weeks with holidays and stuff. I totally get it.
That's literally how the cookies came up.
Yeah. So eating some sugar here and there and eating some things is not going to kill you, but yes, it's going to take away from your progress moving forward, and that's okay. Life is never a straight line. Life is always moving in and out, changing. I mean, that's what life is. When we think about a teacher's day, and they have most of the time a pretty early start. As you know from a nurse, when you were a nurse, you did 7 to 7.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you know what early is all about. Teachers are also pretty similar, especially high school teachers are pretty similar on that schedule. They're in. I mean, their first class is starting at 7:30. Oftentimes they have to be there, be around 7 o'clock. That means, they're waking up. They're waking up really most of the time outside of their own circadian rhythm. Do you work with your clients at all on sleep and sleep
Definitely.
practices?
We
Yeah.
definitely, we take a holistic approach to everything.
Okay.
And it all starts with that nervous system regulation, because that's normally going to be one of the root causes if there is any kind of sleep dysregulation or disruption. And then, since we're talking about diet, we'll go into caffeine intake and how that affects your hormones. And I always start out with the intention of helping them to create a morning practice, but a nighttime routine is also something that we eventually begin to incorporate. And absolutely important to get on some level of consistency with your circadian rhythm. I suggest to all of my clients, we have another really cool thing that I began to learn as I dove deeper into energy and how it affects our different organ systems, is that the liver goes into processing, without getting too sciencey, the liver goes into its process around 11 p.m. So my suggestion is always to attempt to be in bed by 10 p.m. I get so much pushback from people on that of like, people have that, I forget what it's called, when they're trying to like fight back against like getting some of their time back, right? It's like people will stay up to, yes. They'll stay up until like insane hours because they feel like they don't have enough of their own time to themselves during the day. So again, it's always a process, but in creating this sleep regulation, in creating just regulation in your life, right? Like having routines and rituals that are going to make you show up as your highest self, as your best self, with your most energy. Yes, there's pushback and there's some difficulty in getting through that ego and creating these habits that are really good for us. But once we can work through the reality and the root of the excuses that people have around it, my deepest suggestion is usually I'm in bed by like 9 p.m. every night.
God bless you.
So I do suggest to people to be in bed by like 10-ish, because as I was saying, the liver kicks on, and that's when the liver goes into its processing. And when we are still awake during that time, we are actually taking away from the liver's ability to process out toxins, because our energy is being put towards us being awake and all of the things that we're doing while we're awake. Meanwhile, if we were asleep at this time with our natural circadian rhythm, then all of that energy is going to the liver to be able to process out those toxins. So, it gets very, very, very layered. But yes, absolutely. Sleep is a huge piece of nervous system regulation and energy, right? It's where we get our energy from. So
amazing. I really, and I think right now I know some people in my life, close people in my life, that are very unhealthy in many different aspects, and they have very, very aggressive work schedules, sleep schedules, graveyard shifts, and I'm like, that's half the battle. And I'm assuming you probably find this with a lot of your clients where, where one part of their life is, I'm going to say a word, correct me if I'm deregulated. Okay, I don't know if that would be
Dysregulated,
dysregulated. Okay,
deregulated.
then that affects others. So if they are getting poor sleep, they're making poor choices on what they're going to eat, and they're going to, make poor choices on how they're going to talk to their people or whatever, right? Like I feel like it's
Yeah.
kind of a spiral effect. So as we begin to kind of wrap up, I'm curious if there is something that today a teacher is, I mean, let's put it this way. Teachers now have went through, as we all have, and I mean, look at your story, right? You worked in as a trauma nurse during COVID. Yeah, so we have all gone through very difficult times with in the last 2 years specifically. Teachers are just beginning to come back into some reality, and they are faced with, over the last couple of years, a lot of big questions. Am I making a difference? What is the point? Where are we going, and what does the future hold, and what is the future of education? With I mean, so many different aspects. What is something that a teacher can do, or anybody can do tomorrow, that is a tactical thing? They don't need to know anything about how it affects the rest of their life or where we're headed or anything specific, just something tactical that if they start doing it tomorrow and do it for 14 days, random number, 7 days, 30 days, whatever it is, just have some consistency doing this thing, they will begin to see positive effects in their life. I'm curious, is there a tactic like that exists, and what positive effect might they see first?
Yeah. I mean, immediately I'm going to go to focused breathing meditation, kind of taking breath work and meditation. I mean, they go hand in hand anyway. A lot of people struggle with meditation at first because they think they're doing it wrong, or their mind is too messy, like there's too much going on, it's too frustrating, I can't do it. And that's the reality of what you're going to see when you start a meditation practice, because the idea of the meditation practice is to begin observing your thoughts. And when you've never done it before, it's really frustrating and really hard to do. Not hard in like a physical sense, but like the mental sense of it, of just like you are going to get those thoughts of like, I'm hungry, I'm uncomfortable, I have to pee, this is stupid, it's not working. Like that is the nature of the beast with meditation. So often with my clients, I get people who are like, I tried it, it's just not for me, I'm not good at it. Because we want that instant gratification, that satisfaction, that like, I'm doing it right, and I'm doing it good, and I'm winning, right? Like that's what we want out of life. Right. So I would say 15 minutes of your day, putting on a timer and just focusing, closing your eyes and just focusing on your breathing. Become aware of your thoughts as they come up and just allowing them to pass as they do. And inevitably, you're going to find yourself going down loops of thoughts and rabbit holes and things like that. But can you just, there's this thing I talk about, which is just like staying power. Can you just stay with it? Can you just breathe? Can you just allow the thoughts that are coming up to come up? Can you observe them? Can you be with them? Can you let it happen without judgment and without any expectation of what is right or wrong, good or bad, winning or losing? Because there is none of that when it comes to meditation. And over a period of time, you will find this is a nervous system regulation practice. So you're intentionally setting the intention that I'm going to spend this time each day regulating my nervous system. And over time, you are going to find, like we talked about earlier with that neuroplasticity, that your brain will just go to those places. Like over time, you'll find yourself getting into a stressful situation. And again, instead of flying off the handle, you'll all of a sudden notice like, oh, I'm taking a deep breath. Like I'm bringing my nervous system down naturally. And how you were just saying causes an effect on all areas of your life. Like it's not just going to be a quick fix in your anxiety or your frustration, it's going to bleed into a lot more than just that if you're willing to have the practice, patience, grace, and grit to stick with it.
I love that. So one quick follow-up. Is there a specific time that is, of the day that is ideal to have this meditation? And I have one more follow-up after you to your answer. The ideal time of day to actually practice this meditation.
Yeah. So first thing in the morning is always going to be ideal because, and especially because so many of us have the habit of waking up and your alarm clock is your cell phone and you turn over and here you go. Nervous system is on and fired, right? Like
right.
you're scrolling, you're already taking in all of this energy from the outside world. So first thing in the morning, if you can leave your phone on do not disturb and airplane mode and just go straight into meditation. Like I have women who have fought me tooth and nail on this that I'm literally like, just slide out of your bed onto the floor. That's all you have to do. Slide out of your bed onto the floor. And if you're sitting there and you feel like you're just falling back asleep, like let that be the practice, right? Start with baby steps. Because first thing in the morning, before your brain and your energy are already interacting with the outside world, when you still kind of are in these brain waves where you are in that calm, serene space. And plus side to that is then you're starting your day in that energy versus the energy of scrolling on the phone, what's going on in the world, oh my God, catastrophe. Like
which that positive energy will carry you through. Absolutely. Now, so the reason I'm asking you this is because I'm assuming you've got somebody, before you even go down to that details, somebody who works with you and says, yeah, this is all great, but I just don't have the time for this. Now, how long did you say this practice should take?
15 minutes.
15 minutes. So if you're sitting here and you're saying to yourself, yeah, but I have to wake up at the crack of dawn, if you cannot give yourself an extra 15 minutes, that is the first practice, is because finding out why you are not willing to give yourself 15 minutes of less sleep. You could always go to bed 15 minutes earlier, but even still, even if you didn't change a darn thing and just said, I am going to wake up 15 minutes earlier to do this practice. If I usually wake up at 5:45, there is no difference in my energy levels. If anything, it's going to be positive, but no difference in my energy levels from 15 minutes lack of sleep and waking up at 5:30. And the problem, I think, with a lot of people is that they'll jump into an excuse-making mode because they're nervous about this process. Is that kind of what you find sometimes?
100%. I mean, and that would be a whole nother depth of conversation around the fight against the fight against the ego. Like there are parts of your ego that are literally built to sabotage you out of doing the things that are good for you for the sake of comfort. Yeah. And absolutely. Like I'll get those excuses from clients, and that's where a little bit of tough love comes in. And it's like, do you want that 15 minutes of sleep, or do you want peace in your mind and like happiness in your heart and all of these things that we're working towards? Because another thing that I find myself saying a lot is nothing changes if nothing changes. Like I've had plenty of people come to my workshops and buy my courses and things like that. And it is a beautiful thing to take in this plethora of incredible, inspiring information, but nobody's going to come to your house and pull you out of bed and make you do the things that you have to choose to do that are going to cause the effect in your own life. It has to eventually come down to like, you just got to do it.
It's so hard to be respectful of your time. There's like a million other things that I would like to, specifically go down, like that moment, that getting out of bed moment. There's so much magic that happens once we're starting to, as I'm sure you really, are familiar with, beating the battle of the bed. But we're going to definitely, maybe we'll have to have you on as a repeat guest, because we can go so many different avenues down this road. And it was such a pleasure talking with you. Really, really great meeting you. I'm so glad that I had Johnny as my barber, which for those of you who don't know, that's how we got hooked up. And you're one of your clients, Johnny, is my barber. So with that being said, thank you again. If people want to learn a little bit more about you, about your coaching practice, about what you have to offer and where to find you online, where would they go?
Yeah, absolutely. So I spend all of my time over on Instagram. It's my name, Molly Rasanen. on Instagram, and you will find on there information about nervous system healing, about energy. I mean, it's really where I do most of my education, and that's where I launch. I mean, I do monthly workshops. I have a coaching community where it's like $33 a month, and you get access to a group call, and we're in constant connection on a platform called Voxer. I have a lot of different options for anybody at any level, whether this is something that you are already steeped in as far as a spiritual practice, or you are literally just coming to realize that you have some healing to do. It is my life's work and my absolute passion. So I would love to see you in my DMs.
There you go. Drop a DM, folks. Thank you so much, Molly. It was such a pleasure.
Thank you.
So thanks so much for watching and listening today. If you want to learn more about what Molly has to offer and how to actually work with her, the best place to go would be to check her out on Instagram. That's at Molly Rasanen. So at Molly, Rasanen, over on Instagram, and she'll definitely be able to help you out. It's some really great content, and just a really lovely person and a beautiful spirit. So thank you so much. And if you really like today's episode, then please let me know by leaving a rating and review. That'll help me tremendously. And if you really, really liked it, share it with somebody else who you think would really benefit from some of these practices. Thanks so much, and I'll see you next week on the Upgrade My Classroom podcast.